Hey Bodana, what time is it?
It's time for the ChessKid Youth Championships 2026.
Hello and welcome, and yes, it is time for the championship day here at the ChessKid Youth Championships. After the thrills and spills of yesterday, we are now down to 4 to the semi-finals, and we are going to find out today who rules the board. I'm your host, International Master Ivan Kahauska, and I'm here with Mr. ChessKid himself, Fun Master, FIDE Master, Mike Klein.
Happy to be riding shotgun with you again, Yovi, and we're wearing black today because black crushed it yesterday, but we're going to see if that ends up being impactful today. We do have 4 of the top players that advanced, only a few surprises yesterday, but we've got 3 GMs and a kid who just scored a GM norm. That is what we wanted to see in the finals. So I'm super excited about this. And for some of these players, it's their last chance to compete because they're going to age out, much to their parents' chagrin. Kids get older no matter what we try to do. But we're going to celebrate them today. We're going to see who's the champion for 2026.
Yeah, that is a one inevitable fact of life, that kids do get older. And yes, this might be the last chance saloon for some of our players. But for now, they're going to be focusing on what is ahead. And that's okay. We passed the round robin stage. That was yesterday. That was over. Now it's the semi-finals. And now here it is a best of 4. Once you pass through the semi-finals, congratulations, because you've reached the finals, and then it will be a best of 6. So the players, they're going to have to adjust, Mike.
They are, because these are very quick matches. In fact, what I love about this, as opposed to, let's say, the SCC, where they play for 3 hours, they only play for 4 games. It's going to be over just like that. We've got Tani versus Sina Movahed, Tani Adewume, and we've got Yagiz Erdemis versus Andy Woodward. They seem to play every year. In fact, they do play every year. Let's see how the players got here. In the early pool yesterday, you can take a look at the scores. I think we had the scoreboard up there. But actually, let's take a look at the scoreboard. So Yagiz and Sina tied 7-7. I got some facts wrong yesterday. I thought it was Sonnenberg Burger tie breaks, but actually it was head-to-head. Yagiz beat Sina 2-0, so Yagiz gets the number 1 slot, which is why he plays the number 2 from the later pool. Sina is the number 2 player. He still moves on, but he plays the number 1 player today. We'll take a look at those matchups. And what did we see in the later pool? Take a look at that scoreboard. Yovi, what happened then?
There were some nerve-wracking moments, but it was Tani Adewume. He was the one who just cruised through, qualifying with a round to spare. And Andy Woodward at the end, it looked like it was touch and go, but he did it. He clinched it with a half-point lead. And that does mean that we're going to be seeing some very exciting matchups today. And you kind of gave us a preview here. We have it confirmed. So it was Yaz against Andy. That seems to be an old matchup that we've seen before. They kind of feel like they're old rivals, as they say. I like to use the word old when describing youngsters, Mike. And then we have Tani Adewume against Sina Movahed. Tani yesterday telling us that he was very excited to play Sina because Sina is good.
Yeah, you said it. That top matchup there, we see Andy in the top right. He's the defending champion. Yagiz in the top left, world number 38. And you said it. They did play in 2024, the first year of this event, where Yagiz took down Andy 3-1 in the semis. But last year they played in the finals, where Andy got some revenge and he won 4-2. They play for the 3rd year in a row on Sunday. It is the matchup. They know each other very, very well. And down there in the bottom, Tani scored 4.5 in last year's round robin, but as you just saw, scored 7.5 in this year's round robin to lead the group. Tani's down there in the bottom left, and he is going to play against Grandmaster Sina Movahed, our 3rd Grandmaster playing today. Sina survived a disconnection scare, but came back and logged in just in time to qualify. So, of course, we hope that there's no technical troubles today, but this is exactly what we want to see. And I need to do another stat correction. Yesterday, we said that the highest scoring player ever in the round robin phase was Bodana with 9.5 points this year. But in fact, Andy scored 9.5 in round robin play in 2025, but he only scored, 7 this year. So it's a bigger challenge for Andy this year than it was last year. In fact, did he score 7 or 6.5? I can't even remember, but the point is the players are catching up to Andy's skill. There we see Andy chilling with his trophy in the background. I don't know if that's the U.S. Junior Championship or what. He's won so many tournaments. And there we see all 4 players getting ready. We are going to have this thing start any moment. Chat, tell us who you think is going to win. I literally don't know. We are off and running.
We are off and running. The games have begun, and we're seeing on the left that Yaz against Andy. Well, that has kind of gone into one of these closed Sicilian positions. The bishop giving a check. Bishop to d7 was the block, and now queen to e2 has caused Andy Woodward to just pause as he thinks about what he will be playing. White perhaps setting up ideas such as e4, e5 in the equation, whereas in the game between Tani and Sina there on the right, we're already seeing it looks a little bit like a London system, I'm going to say. I think, no, it actually is definitely a London system. And incidentally, this was a variation that Tani lost yesterday against Andy Woodward. So we're seeing a little bit of a repeat there. And Black has the bishop pair. White has a very stable center and has the ability to expand, jump in with a knight to e5. It's kind of a different type of game. We have both of them close, both of them this in balance, bishop against the knight. Mike, where do you think the fireworks are going to start happening? Actually, maybe the players are already deciding that for us, as I see h5 appearing on the board there on the right.
Even without h5, my attention was drawn to the right side of the screen because we had Londons almost every round yesterday, but I can't remember a London where White's dark squared bishop left the board so early. And here's the big question I have for the right side of the screen. Sina's light squared bishop, is it a strength or a weakness? Is Black going to play pawn to e5 to free the position? Uh-oh. Now suddenly the computer is very fearful. I assume something is happening on the H file. Before Black can play pawn e5, they say an attack on the side is best answered by an attack in the center. It looks like Tani's getting going first, and I need to rely on your expert analysis here, Yovi. What's going on in the H file? Knight g5 seems to be super accurate. H7 is a huge weakness.
Right, I was going to say the evaluation bar, they're having a field day, and knight to g5 looks very effective. Suddenly you're seeing ideas such as knight takes h7 in the air. You also got hg6 coming, and it's going to be very difficult for Black to even send some resources that way. I mean, what can you do? If you go h6, well, you're just inviting some kind of complications, such as h takes g6 is what really springs to mind. And I always feel like maybe we can start doing a small deep dive while everything is relatively stable in the other game.
Yeah, let's take a look at that right side of the screen. We're going to jump in there because h6 does seem to be almost a required move here. There's just so many problems on that h7 pawn. So let's say that Black goes ahead. I'm going to go ahead and make the move. Actually, Black did not play h6. Let's just take a look really quick. I'm going to go back one move and see what happens if Black had played the move pawn to h6. I wanted to sack on f7, and Yovi, that's not just because I started my own YouTube channel and my very first video was on sacks on f7. I just released that this morning. But instead, let's play your move, where you just calmly play pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes knight looks like queen h5, and it's just basically game over right away. So pawn takes pawn is almost certainly going to be the move. And now we sack the knight. Bishop takes, and if you decide to grab the knight, I'm sure queen h5. I don't need the computer's help for that one. And there's checkmate coming up almost for sure. So that was the problem with h6. At least that's the problem with accepting the knight.
Right. And you know what? In the game position, Mike, I suspect, I mean, it is just crying out to be played. Knight takes h7 is going to be running through Tani's mind. Okay, and he's played it. And this is looking like it's going to be a killer. Now the runaway king is there on the board. Can it find shelter on d6? Really? I don't suspect that.
I'm surprised Tani played queen h7 insta. Was bishop takes g6 to keep the king in his box not a better alternative? I'm just going to go back really quick because we still got a minute 12 on Tani's clock, and the king is surviving for the moment. So I'm going to jump back to this position. Why would we not play bishop takes? Oh, because the Black rook lifts after bishop takes g6, and then the king actually hides. And as they say, there is no mate with the bishop on g7. So that was why Tani went for the check. And now the king is running, and now White just enjoys an extra 2 pawns, it looks like, and that's going to win all endgames. So Tani could just go into the endgame. And I'm going to propose we go back to the 2-board setup because the fireworks are over for the moment, and this might just transition into a winning endgame for White. We're going to see how it unfolds here. Over on the the left side, what have we missed over there in the Yuj versus Andy annual matchup?
Yes, it does seem like they do play every single year, and I completely agree with you. Tani's definitely going to be looking at the long-term advantage. You know, he does have extra material. And in the game between Yaz and Andy, it's a kind of complicated maneuvering game. You know, the bishop has come out to g5, perhaps got ideas of going bishop takes knight at the right time. You know, you might as well set up a pin. The question, though, for white is how is the knight on c3 actually going to find a useful square? At the minute, it's dominated by that pawn on c6, and it has to either jump to a4 to kind of make use. Maybe it can find a safe, better home, I'm going to say, on c4. But here we're seeing that the trade is in operation, and we're seeing the rook lift, but I think black is very, very comfortable, and Andy's doing his favorite thing. I watched him in action in Tata Steel, and I noticed that he loved to push pawns. And sure enough, d4, c5, c4 is on the agenda. He's a maximalist at heart.
Well, this game is going to break their lifelong score because they've never played in the same round robin in this event due to the fact that they're in different time zones, but they've played both year in the knockout, and they both have 4 wins apiece. It's 4-4. So not only is this going to decide who advances to the finals, it's going to break their personal score. No matter what happens today, we can see they're ticking down to the 10 seconds or so. Things are still very stable on the right side for Tani. He's now gone up the exchange. He looks to be cruising. So my eyes are looking at the left, where the knight seems preferable to the bishop. However, white has to play quite passively to stop that amazing pass d-pawn, and something was up there. The knight went back. It seems like white may have had some kind of alternative that would have given him a different sort of advantage. But still looking at that left side of the screen with the clock ticking down, Tani having no problems on the right. He's finally getting his g-pawn moving and grooving. Tani wins. So over on the left side of the screen, we're going to have to wrap this up here and see if Yuj can also win like Tani, the 2 number 1 seeds from yesterday.
Yes, well, he's doing a good job, actually, of grinding this one down, especially with no time on the clock. You know, he's improved his rooks. Now, the big threat of queen takes f7 on the board. The knight now suddenly finds a very good home there on c4. Perhaps you could have taken the pawn on e5, but there was no big need, no need to rush this one. But, okay, well, some perhaps precise moves there from Edamush with not much time. The players do only get that 1 second increment per move, challenging. And I like the way that Yaz is playing this, especially now that everything is under lock and key. The b pawn is safely covered. Check. Oh, big threats of knight to d4 in the air, and also a victory for Yaz. So it seems like things are going well for the players with the white pieces. Do you think that trend is going to continue into game 2, Mike?
Well, we'll see. I mean, remember, Yuj squandered his first opportunity as white. He lost in round 1 yesterday quite spectacularly, I believe, to the youngest kid in the event. He was determined not to squander his first white today, and he ends up winning on time in a better position. And as you can see, we don't take any breaks here. Oh, no, break out your NeuroGum. I know I needed it yesterday. I had some members of my team say that I was a little bit excitable yesterday. It was a caffeine-induced commentary, and you're going to need it today because we didn't even take a break. Sina and Tani are well into their round 2 game, where Sina is looking to equalize the score. If Tani should win, he'll go up a quick 2-0. But yes, a reversal from yesterday. We're wearing the wrong shirts. I'm going to have to break out my white Chess.com shirt during the break. But we are in round 2, both two players trying to even the score up.
Yes, and I gotta say that Tani is really going hard at the minute. You know, he's chosen a really ambitious line against e4, e5, going for an early f5 breakthrough, then castling on the queen side, and just asking white, you know, how are you going to defend against my activity? And now inviting Sina to actually grab that pawn on f6. Not sure that was necessarily the safest choice, especially in this time control, because bishop to e7, the rooks were gonna line up on the open g and f line, and it could be very difficult for white to handle the activity. But thankfully, there is a bishop there on c4 that covers at least a rook to g8.
I have to wonder if Tani is trolling me a little bit. He is a child of ChessKid. He did get some of his earliest instruction with our videos. And in our videos, we say, don't push your f-pawn without my written permission. We're not going to go back, but I'm just going to say that Tani played the Schliemann. He pushed his f-pawn on move number 3. So Tani is trying to deal a mortal blow to all my instruction, but also, of course, it is a weapon that is occasionally used. This is the first really surprise opening in the match today. So that knight, though, is coming down on c2. Now, luckily, it does have a way to get back to safety. He is not behind enemy lines like Owen Wilson was in the 1990s. Boom! Yovi, first 90s movies reference. I get on the board for that one. Let's go back to chess. And white is getting a good advantage by pushing the f-pawn. Oh my gosh, both players are trolling me.
Yeah, and Sina, I've noticed, is a great defender, not only just hyper energetic with his play, but he's managing to find ways in order to press black. And I like the way that he's keeping control, right? But there's a big decision now, Mike, and I gotta say, do you capture that pawn on d5, open up further lines, or do you go for some kind of counter with e5, try to lock the game down? Bear in mind that the white king is not very safe for the time being. Okay, yes, white does have those extra pawns, but just remember, rook g8, doubling on the g line is there on tap for black.
I don't see why you wouldn't just take and give black an isolated pawn. I want to keep an eye on the clocks, though, because it's now a minute-and-a-half time advantage, about as large as you'll ever see in a 3+1 match. By the way, that knight almost did get himself trapped, but everything is looking good for white. I think the king is a lot safer after the bishop comes to e3, just guarding that dark square diagonal, and I could see some problems. Now, queen d4 might be answered by bishop to c5, which could be a real problem. I'm having a hard time seeing where your queen really wants to go to defend your bishop. So probably have to choose a more passive square. Although I guess the computer is saying you can play queen d4 and then go back to d2, but that's a very strange thing. Why not just go to d2 first? That's a much more human idea. Here comes a counterattack, though. Computer doesn't like it, but in blitz chess, why would you not put your rook on g8? So go home, computer. That is the move that all strong players would play. And the computer wants to trade one set of rooks for black for Tani, but Tani's got 20 seconds.
No, he doesn't have much time. And look, the h pawn has also fallen off. I'm expecting Tani just to solidify the pieces, make sure that there are no loose pieces. But I also got to mention that on the left, Andy Woodward is on the back foot against Yaz there, with Yaz having the bishop pair, having also the potential, once he moves that bishop from b6 to go f5, and also to start going e4, driving the white pieces back.
Yeah, this is the round of f-pawns advancing. f5 is going to be the move that Yagiz plays. But over here on the right side of the screen, even though white is down the exchange, white has incredibly strong pass pawns. It's 4 against 2, including one pawn up there on a7, and bishop to d5 is coming. And there's not a thing that Tani can do to stop it. Sina ties the match 1-1. White is now 3-0, a complete reversal from yesterday. Justice has been restored in the universe. White is in fact better, and they're going to start game 3 on the right. This means that match will go to at least the 4th and final game. Nobody will clinch early in that match, and we have a little bit more of a sedate opening. Sina, I believe, played this once yesterday. Could be wrong on that, but over there on the left side of the screen, the f-pawn is in fact rolling a massive center for Yagiz. And if Yagiz is able to win his black, he will go ahead 2-0, and Andy will have to win both of his final games.
Yeah, and Yagiz got everything he could dream of here. You know, the center, the ability to push the pawns. I mean, he's got a very pleasant choice here. He can go e3. He can just even sit there. He doesn't have to do absolutely anything with the tension. Instead, that's what we're seeing here. Rook to e8, making sure that there's no trade. And again, he can choose to advance with d3, e3. The choice is in his hands. But I like the fact that 24 seconds, and Yaz is just learning from the best. His coach is Shakariar Mamedyarov, and Shak is all about that energy on the board. And d3, it is a coming. Pawn takes pawn can be met with e3. It can also be met with pawn takes pawn itself. So plenty of lovely moves for black. I'm expecting e3.
Yeah, I am too. Over on the right, Tani just seems to be playing either a Petrosian or a Makaganov King's Indian defense where he's up 2 tempos, because the black knight went to c6, then back to b8 before finding a home on c5, which is a totally normal line, except I think it's just 2 tempos down, unless my math is wrong. So looks to be a pleasant position for Tani on the right. He plays g4, and you know what? It's to stop f5. So finally the players are getting the hint that maybe pushing that f-pawn is something that needs to be dealt with. But on the left side of the screen, that game is going to end first. Yagiz has 7 7 seconds, but a pawn on e2, the ultimate wedge pawn, bishop to e4, trying to cut off the protection. Now you can sack and exchange to get rid of that pawn if you need to, and he might need to, and he does, but that means that black goes ahead the exchange. Rook c2, ideas are in the air, but the knight on b4 stops it. Okay, 2 seconds left for Yagiz. He's got to break through with his extra exchange. He trades rooks as one does when you're up the exchange. Having one rook means you'll be the only rook on the board. The rooks are getting very active. It looks great for Yagiz.
It does, and all he has to do is hold his nerve, relocate that bishop. Okay, simply he can go like this. The queens are off, but Andy's fighting hard. You know, he's at least picked up a pawn for his woes, and now it's just about instincts. I think you can just throw out any deep calculation here. That's not going to be happening. The players are going to just simply be improving their pieces. And in the time trouble, Yas has actually dropped 2 pawns on the queen side. And now
Andy hung a piece.
Oh no. Yeah.
And instead of resting on his laurels and keeping the d5 pawn, he traded the d5 pawn for the a pawn. I think he was trying to go for a win, but that loosened the knight, and Yagiz jumped on that extra knight, and now it's an extra piece. I think Andy went for a little bit too much. He had kind of found stasis, but he should have kept that d pawn, and now he's down an entire rook, and it looks like Yagiz is going to go up 2-0, and if I can borrow a golf term, Yagiz will be dormy. He will just need a draw in one of the final 2 rounds.
Yeah. And well, actually, there we see shake of the head there, but Yaz, he does do that. So he goes up 2-0 against Andy Woodward. Andy Woodward needs to strike back ASAP. And in the other game between Tani and Sina, well, we saw Tani strike quickly in game 1, but here it looks like Sina is now in for the kill as he's set up the mother of all pins there. The rook on c6, the knight on f3, and now the rook on h1. They're all loose. And yeah, the bishop pair is just fantastic.
Yeah, that e-pawn's going to move down the board at some point and open up the dark squared bishop. It was a very interesting reaction there from Yagiz. You said a shake of the head. If I can channel my inner Ben Feingold bad puns, it's a shock of the head, if I can have his coach come into the game here. But yeah, that was strange. He almost looked not guilty or embarrassed, but almost like befuddled why he won that game. But he was better the whole time. So maybe he was a little bit upset with himself that Andy had gotten this strong D pawn and had almost gotten to equality. But Yagiz played a great game. I mean, you can't expect to be playing perfect chess in Blitz. So he can't hear me, but Yagiz, I think you played great, actually. And that was a deserved win. So, all right, Andy's got to come up with something. Open Sicilian. He needs to win both games here. And if he doesn't, Yagiz will enact some revenge from the 2025 finals where Andy beat Yagiz 4-2.
Yes. Basically, Andy is in a must-win situation here. He has to win the 2 games. If he wants to tie the match, take it to tie breaks. Will Andy do it? He's got the black pieces. And now for Yaz, he just has to lock the game down. And you can do that by just simplifying the position. That's the ideal scenario. But psychologically, it's really important that you just kind of play it as if there is nothing on the line. Just make sure you don't get nervous.
Okay, Sina just played f5. Apparently, it's a contractual rule to move your f-pawn today, but of course, there's no problem there. White has no light squared bishop on the right side of the screen to attack the king, and he wants to open up his bishops. Even though his pawns got fractured, the bishops do a great job of shepherding those pawns down the board. Whereas if White tries to push his advantage, he's going to be weakening his own king by doing so. Pawn a3, hoping to fracture some of Tani's pawns as well. But a fascinating encounter on the right. Whoever wins this game on the right will be in the driver's seat and will only need a draw to advance to the finals because that match is tied 1-1. So a3, you think Tani should take or push? I think you got to take the pawn, but then your knight is loose, and then any rook move on f6 weakens everything. I guess it's actually, yeah, it is Tani's move. So Tani doubles up on the 7th rank. That looks visually very strong, but can black attack first? Pawn takes pawn check. Does the king hide on b1? I literally don't know what's going to happen on the right side of the screen.
Yeah, it looks like you might be forced to do something like that. But okay, we're seeing bishop f8 there from Sina, just moving out of the attack. And the question is where to hide the king. You don't actually need to move the king. You can just block. But it feels very, very dangerous for Sina as well, because if the bishop lands on e5, there's going to be rook h8 ideas. And oh, okay, well, this last move wasn't the best, because how are you going to defend the knight there on b5?
Yeah, rook takes
a4, but
d4, undercut the knight, undermined the knight, and also deflected the two white rooks away. Both kings seem to be dying. If this was Street Fighter 2 in my middle school days, we call this a double KO. That's not possible in chess. Only one can get mated first, and Sina wins the knight. Tani rubs his eyes, knowing that a 3-result game went the one result he didn't want to have happen. So Sina goes ahead 2-1 into their final match. Tani with a dominating day yesterday, but now he's in trouble going into game 4.
Yeah, Tani is in a must-win situation going into game 4 if he wants to level the match, and he's also playing with the black pieces. Will we see something as ambitious as the Schliemann? No. He's gone for knight to f6, d6, all very normal. And now the game is kind of taking a maneuvering phase. But Sina, you know what I like about him is he doesn't blink. He's like, I just need a draw and I'm going to play the most aggressive response. Bishop to g5, inviting black to go into all of the complications after g5. But note how white is holding off on castling. Tani does it anyway.
Controlled aggression by Tani. I was actually wondering if he was going to go back to his 8-year-old chess days where his very first opening as black was the Owens defense. And I thought he might throw a spanner in the works. That's a wrench for all of my American friends. I thought he was going to try to surprise Sina, but no, he goes for more traditional. But this is controlled aggression. He's pushed his g-pawn. He's left his king in the center. And he's given himself every opportunity to get an imbalanced position. And we're on the left side of the screen. Both players have dipped below 1 minute, and white has a seemingly inconsequential extra pawn. But what's important here is that there's not a lot of asymmetry. Remember, Yagiz only needs a draw. He is forcing the queens off the board. And if you were to take, you would also force the light squared bishop off the board, and that would be an opposite color bishop game. Yagiz is getting, I think, exactly what you want when you're in a position where you only need a draw to be able to advance. I would trade queens, put a rook on e2, or maybe just play rook on e2 first and not force the trade and help the black rook get to an open file. Let's see how Yagiz handles it. He plays rook e2, okay?
He does. I think that was a very good strategy because only black would be benefiting from the queen trade as it stands. But at least Andy can perhaps preserve the queens now as he trades of rooks and then moves the queen out of the exchange. And there's still something, to fight for. The bishop can reroute itself from f6, go to g5, maybe even to e7, just to at least menace and some checks against the white king, especially when white just has 15 seconds and the clock is ticking down. Can you take that pawn on b7? Well, Yaz has decided to go for the e pawn. And I suspect that Andy, it's not over for him despite being material down.
I appreciate not taking the b pawn and allowing queen c5 check. Instead, he took this pawn, kept the black pieces bottled up, but they're like a coiled rattlesnake. That queen and two bishops, they're just waiting for their moment to come to life, especially the dark squared bishop, because that's where white's weaknesses are. White has no dark squared bishop. And guess what? White moved the f-pawn. Please let somebody be punished for moving the f-pawn so that all of my ChessKid videos are actually useful. I'm not wishing bad upon you, Yagiz. I'm just saying, the kids out there, they need to be taught. Okay, so now we have a pure queen endgame. How could white possibly lose? I don't see it. Now, in queen endgames, we usually think not just about number of pawns, but who's got the more active queen. Guess what? Yagiz has more pawns and the active queen. I just don't see how Andy could possibly win this game. But he's got to try something. Maybe try to flag, but that 1 second increment is not his friend right now.
No, it's not his friend. Another pawn has fallen. The best that Andy can hope for is a repetition, a draw. And of course, that is it. The queens are off, and all Yaz has to do is walk the king to the middle. And Yaz does it with a clean sweep of 3 points, winning in 3 games against one of his ChessKid rivals, Andy Woodward. A smile there from Andy. He knows that today it was Yaz's day.
It absolutely was. 2 of the Tata Steel players, I think, that Yagiz played in the top section. Andy won the challengers and will play the top sections. They might meet OTB next year. But for this year, Yagiz does enact some revenge from last year's finals and wins 3-0, a dominating performance. Andy smiles knowing that he was beaten by some very strong chess today. So a little bit of a longer break for Yuj, and he gets to sit back and he gets to watch the Sina versus Tani game. Reminder, Tani has to win as black. Computer says he's much worse, but you know what? There's a mess on the board. That's not the worst thing to have happen when you need to win the game. So what do we see? We see people ignoring threats on their queen, but Yovi, how is black going to make a comeback in this game?
Yeah, it's very difficult for black because the pieces are so awkwardly placed. You know, they were basically all on the back rank. And I really like this counter move there from white, because where are you going to put the queen in order to defend it? You can't. You have to go bishop takes queen. And after d takes e7, then you're finding that black has two pieces that are under attack. And actually, maybe even the knight on f4. It's all falling apart. d6 was such a classy move. Everything is held together by the white knights on e4 and e3.
Look at that. He put his queen on an emprise square on purpose. How often do you see that in a chess game? And that d-pawn, the double Zwischenzug. He played d6 a minute ago. Now he plays d7. He's collecting pieces. And maybe Tani's lucky to only be down one piece, but he doesn't have a single pawn for it. The white king is super safe. And things are critical for Tani. And look at that. Both Americans go down. In the semifinals, Sina wins 3-1. Yuj wins 3-0. And we have our finals. We have the two, I believe, highest rated. I'm not sure about that. Two highest rated blitz. Okay. Anyway, we've got two grandmasters. We've got Yuj versus Sina in the finals. Sina looks stoic there. Yuj only got a couple extra minutes of break. Tani scratches the back of his neck. And we've got, this edition brought to you not by Neuro, but by Red Bull. We saw what Sina was drinking there. So you know what? Red Bull does sponsor some chess players. Very smart of you, Sina, to grab a Red Bull. And he's going to need that for the finals. What an exciting semis, though.
Yeah, it was incredible semis and full of unexpected results, because what we saw before in the past was that Andy against Yaz, that was such a close encounter. This time it was just all Yaz from the get-go, just going through, and Tani winning that first game, doing a demolition job. But Sina was like, you know what? You provoked me. And then he just came in hard. And well, it was very, very good showing from both our players. But as you mentioned, we now are in a final. It's a best of 6 between Yaz Edomush against Sina Moverhead. And that was actually encounters that we saw yesterday in the Group A.
Yeah, Yuj won both of their head-to-head games yesterday, so Sina's going to have to try something a little bit different today against Yuj. But this is a big-time finals between two big-time teenagers, and we will see if Yuj is able to win his third under-16 title, his fourth overall ChessKid Youth Championship. Remember, he won the under-13 one year. So we will see if he's able to do that right after this break, and Yovi's going to take us there. Tell us what's up.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone is cheering for our finalists, friends, family. And talking about friends and family, well, we are introducing the Friends and Family Plan for Chess.com. With your bundled purchase, unlock 6 diamond memberships to up to 70% off the standard price. That means you can share all the perks like unlimited game review, that's a good one, and puzzles with everyone you care about. Prices do vary depending on your country, so visit go.chess.com/family or use !family in chat for more information. And on that note, we are getting ready for the big one. It's going to be a best of 6 that's coming on the other side of this break.
I'm Gotham Chess, and I'm about to film the most extreme chess challenge I've ever done. I'm going to be playing 4 games at the same time, and every kid is going to be armed with a giant super soaker gun. Let's see if I can win all 4 games. Okay. Why did I sign up for this? This is like extreme sports. Oh my gosh, I can't even see. These two are like really brutal. I feel like I haven't even been attacked on that side. Why are you all defending your kings? Like, just let me win. Okay, all right, that's fair. I'm gonna be so excited when your water guns run out of water. I'm just gonna like... Oh yeah, yeah. How about you all do it at the same time for like 30 seconds straight?
Ready? No.
Hey. It's just... Yay! I play this. It is mean, yes. How does she still have water? Oh my god. Checkmate. Good game. For some reason? Well, that means he probably enjoys chess, right? For some reason. No? That was so fast. I'm down to 2 boards. Ah! How do you still have so much water?
I haven't played.
Okay, no problem.
Before I move to my checkmate, I just yeah. I'm done.
Okay, yay. Ah, I had a feeling she was lying. That's checkmate. Good game. I can sacrifice my queen. I'm just saying, don't so mean. Ah! Good game. You lasted the longest. I'm trying to shake your hand. Woo! That was very fun. Thank you for volunteering. You know, actually, I feel like getting revenge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying my best to practice a little bit. I mean, seems like lots of other players are practicing a lot as well. And I don't know, it seems like a really strong field this year. Lots of improving, strong blitz players. So yeah, it'll be fun. I don't have any expectations in general, but I'll just try to have fun and play good chess. I guess last year, I probably just did lots of simple tactics. Probably played a couple blitz and bullet games before, just warm up my brain, see some patterns and stuff. I didn't do anything special, but I guess I was just kind of, maybe I like looked at like a bit of like, well, like because I've played quite a few matches against some of them, so I guess I have a bit of a general feel for how they play. So I guess I just kind of thought a little bit about how I want to try to steal the game a little bit, but in general, nothing special. Regarding Faustino and Odogmas, I guess in general, they're both very great calculators. Their calculation is probably very, very accurate and fast. So I guess that's probably one of their biggest strengths, and they also have deep opening knowledge. So I guess I don't really have any advantages over them, I think. I just have to try to get a game where I can play more comfortable. But in general, they're both very, very solid and tactical players. I guess looking at the field, probably, I guess I didn't look too closely at it, but I did notice some standout names like Sina, Movahead, and Ryo-Chen. I feel like their ratings are both 3150 to 3200 plus rating range, as well as like this Sergei Skoklin or something. He's also like 3100 plus consistently. So I think in general, basically the whole entire field is like very, very strong this year. So anything can happen. So yeah, I'm excited to see how they can play and how I can play.
It is time to find out who our under-16 ChessKid Youth Champion is going to be. Could it be this young gentleman that we have on our screens in front of us? He's one of the finals. He's just 14 years old. It's Yagiz Adomush, actually dubbed by Magnus Carlsen. I remember all the way back in Norway Chess as being one to watch, one of the strongest 14-year-olds on the planet. He is just breaking the rules. He just entered the top 50. I think he's number 38 in the live rankings. He is a beast, just 14 years old. Currently, I would say Mike the favorite in his match against Sina Movahead. But what do you think?
Yeah, certainly he has more history in this event, mostly positive history, having won both the under 13 and under 16 in 2024, and last year making it all the way to the finals, and of course avenging his last round finals just a moment ago against Andy. So he's a more well-known player. He's already playing at the international level, and I think certainly most pundits would regard Yagiz as the favorite. But Sina is a super strong grandmaster, just off a very strong OTB event himself. So this is a great matchup for the finals. We've always had GM versus GM finals, and we're going to see two good games today. Now, yesterday, when they played head-to-head, there was an open Sicilian when Yagiz was white. It was a Rosalimo. And when Sina was white, it was a standard closed Lopez. Unfortunately, that game did not find its fitting conclusion because that was the disconnection game that Sina had. But here we go. We are off and running. Yagiz is white, and we are not going to see a Rosalimo because it's a London.
It is a London, and that was something that Yaz was using yesterday with great effect, I've got to say. But I got to say, don't discount Sina Movahead. You know, he's won title Tuesday. He's known as a giant killer. I think he's got a nickname as the next Ali Reza. So expect big things from him. He also became a grandmaster at the age of 14. He's just 15 years old right now. And they're going for that trendy line where you go knight to h5. You just hunt down that London bishop on f4. So we've seen games where we've seen bishop to e3 being played, but this one is a new one. And there you're seeing Sina pause, look, and try to recall the theory.
Yeah, we saw this exact line just a moment ago in the semis where that dark squared bishop did not survive. I'm sure this is part of Amon Hambleton's course on Chessable on the London, but having not purchased your course yet, Amon, I'm very sorry, not putting money in your pocket. I got to figure this out for myself. The bishop survives, but puts itself on e3. Now it's a battle of who could care less. If I could channel my Ben Folds days, 90s reference, which piece is worse, the bishop or the knight? I literally don't know, but I literally do care because this is going to make a big impact on the game.
Yeah, and I think the plan is actually for black to go f5, f4, you know, to really just set fire to the whole board and initiate that whole set of actions, because otherwise, what is black going to be doing with that knight there on h5? So bishop to g2, and I'm expecting here, you're kind of got to go for broke with a knight on the edge.
And amazingly, if you play f5, I was looking for certain discovered attacks because loose pieces drop off. The computer recommends, please hold on to your seats, everybody, not knight e5, not knight g5, not knight g5, knight g1. Knight g1 was the computer's recommendation. Oh, as far as moving this knight, who saw that coming? Nobody. That is the advanced neo quasi Breyer. Okay, for those of you who understand my reference, weird knight backward moves. I can't fathom this move. I'm not going to try to explain it, but I'm sure that various other knight moves are popping in Yagiz's head, and that's why he's got a 30-second deficit on the clock. I guarantee you he's looking at various knight moves, including knight to g5, putting some pressure on h7, and knight to e5, just centralizing the knight. By the way, if you play knight e5, let's show our first tactic of the finals. I'm going to put it on the board. Let's go back for just one move. If he had played knight to e5, then it would be a big mistake to play knight takes knight, because then after queen takes, excuse me, not queen takes, that was my first blunder of the finals. I got a little ahead of myself. Pawn takes, threatening the bishop and threatening the knight, white would win a piece. Okay, let's go back to reality. And in this game, we had queen to e8, guarding the knight, safety first. After bishop g5, the queen safe itself, guards the knight. We are in our live position in game one of our best of 6 finals.
Okay, it's an interesting move there, a queen to e8. I was actually expecting queen to b6, you know, targeting the pawn on b2, but queen to e8, plan is, again, you still have f4 in the air. The knight now is on h5. And one of the things that I like is also going knight f6 and then just plonking that knight onto e4 where it becomes a beast.
Yeah, it looks great. In fact, there's even some ideas with the queen lined up with the king of pushing this pawn up to e5. And that's an incredibly committal decision. Also notice that this pawn is incredibly weak after pawn takes pawn, and taking with the queen would be check. So f4 is the more prudent move. That gives black play without giving white counterplay, and that is what grandmasters are good at doing. They want to have all the fun and not give their opponent any fun, especially in a blitz game. Yagiz has 50 seconds, already a 1-minute deficit. Remember, Sina was much faster than Tani in the semifinals. Now he finds himself up a minute, and he's the one pressing in this first game. Black is back on track in the finals.
Right. And I got to say something, Mike, it's going to be really difficult for Yaz to actually find a really good move here, because h6, g5, trapping that bishop was on the agenda. And it still is, actually, because how is white going to unravel?
Yeah, Noah's Ark is not going away. I actually don't know. If you play h6, you're almost pot committed to sacking a piece for a couple of pawns, because I guess your option is not. I mean, the funny thing is even g4 does not give the bishop an escape hatch. I think you're almost committed to sacrificing the exchange piece for 2 pawns in that kind of position. So yeah, I'm expecting h6. It's kind of the human, the natural move. The computer wants to activate this bishop and play b6, which is a nice idea. If the bishop gets to a6, it's kind of hard for white to castle to the king side. So a lot of options here for white, for black, sorry. It is white's move at the moment, though, after queen to e2. Does guard that a6 square, helps prevent various entreaties against the white king.
Yeah, and it's also probably signaling that if black were to ever go h6, g5, well, hang low, the white king is going to be on the queen side. So a5 is a very, very clever move. It's actually discouraging the white king from running there to safety as well. And now your b6 move has made an appearance. Bishop a6 is incoming, and oh no, things are looking really shaky for the white king. I'm expecting moves such as b5, and now using the a-pawn as a battering ram. Oh, this is beautiful.
Knight to b4, opening up the c-file, a clean piece sack. First of all, it's a good move. Secondly, it's a great move when your opponent has 10 seconds with which to defend such a position. Now, Yagiz took immediately. The queen dives in before the rooks do. Yagiz may have thought that he had to accept the sacrifice given the limited time and just put on his seatbelt and hope for the best. But now he's not even ahead any material at all. All the black pieces are invading. It's Morphy-esque in the attack here. And I don't know that Yagiz is going to be able to survive this game.
It looks very difficult because, again, so many nice plans come to mind for black. You can double on the b line. b2 is the target. You don't even need to worry about that bishop that's under fire, because after all, there's rook c8 as a response. There's a pin on the c line, so the bishop can't move. And oh, watch out, black, because there was queen to h7 checkmate, but now everything is under full control. Sina saw that. Players on seconds left, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think you want to trade queens here. Oh, rook c3, the blue arrow helping the commentators. Rook c3 because the b-pawn was pinned, and then white would have to lose queen. He finds it the second time, and the second time was pretty much just as good as the first. Now it's just mop-up duty. It's cleanup work. Technically, the 2 rooks can sometimes fight against the queen, but the 2 rooks are about to become 1 rook. No, he doesn't want the rook. Wow. He doesn't want those counterplay with the c and the d pawns. Now it's actually not so clear. He's very concerned about these passed pawns. Is he going to take a draw? He's
taking the draw.
He did not take the rook on h1. And let's just take a look here at what could have happened had he not acquiesced into a draw. An amazing idea by Yagiz to just get these couple of extra pawns. If we go back a couple of moves to this position, I want to see the original incarnation of the queen coming to a1 and the king coming to c2. We're going to go to the next game. We're going to figure out maybe post-event what exactly he could have done. I think he could have taken the rook on a1 and lived to tell the tale. But maybe he also realized, hey, a draw is not the worst result as black in game 1. And that's already better than he did yesterday. Remember, he lost 2-0, although 1 was a disconnection game. Okay, so we go back. No Lopez like yesterday. We have ourselves what seems to be an Italian game.
Yes. And still the same strategy, though, just going bishop to g5, doing that before castling and inviting black to just go forward with the king side. Whereas when the white king has not yet committed, and a4, the idea is simply to go a5, grab as much space as possible. And other kind of ideas that you do have is actually to go bishop takes knight at the right time and jump in with a knight to d5. And I just love the way that White is just not just budging there. He could go bishop takes bishop, but decides instead, no, I'm just going to let that tensions just simmer away in the center. Knight to d5 making appearance. This is what white wants, and you're going to back it up by just swarming the queen side.
Yeah, and we try to cater to all audiences in the chat. So for anybody out there who's making their first forays into chess or maybe below 1,000, let's remind everybody that when the center is closed, you don't have to be in as big of a hurry to castle. That's why both sides were delaying. In fact, sometimes that pin is a massive deal. It wasn't in this game because the bishop was on e7 to break the pin, but keep that in mind. All of our friends are making their first steps in chess. When the center is closed, which means the pawns are running into each other, you can take a little bit longer to decide which way to get your king castled. So, and if we have Hikaru or Magnus in the chat, I hope you approve. I'm thinking that you do. But that's why the white king can hang out for the moment. He's not going to hang out there forever because eventually black will make some sort of break. Maybe we're going to see the f-pawn moving again. We'll see, but probably not now because black just gave away his light squared bishop.
And it's an interesting one because now we have the presence of opposite color bishops. They're both unchallenged, and it's the person who has the initiative, i.e. the target, that is going to have the advantage. And when we compare this bishop on d5, it is looking at the pawn on f7. Now, don't be tempted to go bishop takes b7. That is just a wild goose chase because the bishop doesn't have too many squares and is bound to be trapped. And also the b pawn is hanging. There's only one person that benefits there. So instead, bishop to b3. And just remember that now the target is there on f7. And this bishop on f6 doesn't really have something to look at.
Probably won't play a factor in the game, but to continue on what Jovi said, and also to give you my own mortal weakness, when I was a kid growing up, I hung this pawn about 3 different times, forgetting that the f7 pawn is actually pinned. It's just something that's very easy to slip your mind. So if the queen ever invades to g4, just keep an eye on this pawn. It's not guarded as well as it seems. Sure looks like the white bishop is enjoying life and the black bishop is struggling. So white continues to poke weaknesses on the light squares. As Hans Kamak would say, there's leukopenia. There is weakness on the light squares. And for those of you out there who have never read a chess book, well, know your classics. Pawn Power and Chess certainly was required reading when I was growing up. Okay, the knight goes back to d2. The queen guards the pawn. The queen's going to be able to invade one day by going through the f3 square. There's a lot of light square weaknesses. They're going to be there forever against the black king, and this bishop is not playing chess right now.
Yeah, this bishop definitely not playing chess. And like you say, the vision is clear. You want to go bishop takes knight as white, and you want to just jump in with a knight to f5, and then you can kind of say, hey, good knight versus bad bishop. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So black has to fight against this with dynamics. So you have to activate the pieces. You have to strike out in the center with some well-timed d5. You need to maximize the risk for white, because if white just gets the king to safety, jumps in with the knight to f5, then black is just going to basically suffer the rest of the game.
Yes, I will eat my Chess.com squishy if black does not play d5, okay? Every strong grandmaster here needs to upset the apple cart and make some sort of imbalance because this is a classic knight versus bishop middle game. So black has to play d5. It is absolutely required. I'm not just saying that because I've chewed a lot of neuro gum. How much do I have left? I've got, almost a full blister pack. Okay, so we're good on the neuro. And yes, I have had some today. It worked for Magnus at the SEC finals. And d5 happened. Luckily, I can eat more nutritiously today. That chess.com pawn is safe. Okay, rook to b3, stifling these white pawns. And what do we see coming up in the next couple of moves here, Yovi?
Yeah, I'm expecting black to actually go the whole hog with d4 at some point. Bishop to f8 makes a whole lot of sense. And also, I want to just point out that Sina, he is quick. He has a very healthy lead on the clock. Very nice handling there, and he's kind of keeping control. Everything is good now. The big question is, do you go rook takes b2 and allow white to capture on d5? But Yaz is like, no, I'm not going to be doing that. Why is this a mistake you can take? And maybe now you can grab the pawn.
Yeah, we finally have some dynamic play here. And the white knight eschews the trade, gets to its dream square of f5. Computer says double question mark, even though the knight wanted to go there all the time, because I guess the knight is just a visually attractive piece. That's a sign of nothing. And black has broken through, and black's just going to work around the knight. Black has the best rook. Black's bishop's gaining some life. It might drop back to d6. So actually, Yagiz has evened up here, not just on the board, but on the clock as well.
Yeah, I suspect the bishop is going to retreat all the way back to f8, I'm going to say, just so that it keeps the knight on f5 honest. And then you can mobilize the queen, because as you mentioned, black's rook is so good. Okay, well, your bishop came to d6. That was also a good idea. And now the question here is, how is white going to start mobilizing? You got to go rook to b1, exchange off that rook. That is oh so powerful there. And that's
Black can't
exactly
double
what's
on the b
happened.
file. And if white takes control of
No.
the b file, queen b8 is a big deal. The queen teams up with the knight really well. So black just says, if you're going to win the d file, I'd rather your rook win the file than your queen. And I'm going to keep my rook on the board to at least dominate the second rank, because there was pawn e3 ideas in the air. So a 3-result game, but only 3 seconds for Yuj. Now, Yuj survived a terrible attack in the first game, and he might be facing an attack after rook to b8 here, but instead we had queen to d1. Are they going to toggle again? Are we going to have them bail out again? Okay, no. Yuj does not repeat like Sina did in round 1. He grabs the pawn. These are now new positions. The threefold repetition is out the door. E3 happens. Here comes the dark squared bishop.
And the king has to hide there on f1. Otherwise, the queen would have stepped up to e4. The queen can still step up to that square, and it's now so dangerous for the white monarch. Big threats of queen to f4, checkmate. Oh, what is this?
B1.
That is
Bishop
fast.
B1 to clear out a square for the queen. Unbelievable idea. Yuj wins with a fantastic combo there at the end. It was bing, bang, boom. That's all she wrote on International Women's Day. And Yuj wins the first game of the match, 1.5 to 1/2. His lead is beginning here in the finals.
Yeah, it was a great defense there from Yaz when he needed it. And also how he went on the counter. Again, just very, very instructive, and no time on the clock, I've got to say. So he held his nerve. Now the players don't have any time to relax, as you find ourselves in a g3, I want to say kind of hybrid with a knight off and dragon structure on the board. But okay, no, it's a dragon structure, pawns on g6. But white's plan is very clear. When the bishop is fianchetted like that, you want to be jumping in at the right time with a knight going to d5. It's all about that control.
Very nice. We just saw why both players have blitz ratings of 3150 or so. In fact, Sina's blitz rating is slightly higher than Yuz's, but that's why Yuz was able to play such great chess. He's no stranger to playing very fast chess. I actually dropped my pen during that final, so my pen is now on the floor. I'm going to see if I can do commentary while picking up my pen with my foot. Not a skill I thought I'd need, but we're going to go for it. So I'm going to stay on camera, and the little sub battle is whether or not I can pick up my pen with my foot. But the knight goes to d5. Yovi, you were exactly right. Knight to d5 happened, helping strengthen this bishop in case that annoying knight ever gets captured. Pawn c3, shutting down black's bishop. And after a4, a3 is the big idea, sacking a pawn to punch a hole, and white plays b3 in response. I might have waited for a3 to play b3 because the pawn looks a little looser on a3 than on a4. But okay, that's just me. Finally, black gets rid of the annoying knight. The pawn does take, knight a5. And who's winning the queen side here?
Yeah, well, this is the big idea that white has. You know, you want to park up a knight to d4 to get to c6. You want to make use of that outpost on the square. And here you've just got to, again, hold firm. The rook is going to come to c1, you know, perhaps ideas of going c4 at the right time. But for the time being, it's all about just improving the pieces. Rook e1, and maybe the queen can step up to d2, bishop to g5 instead, chosen. Now I like this bishop takes bishop. I don't think I would blink. I would like to weaken the black king. But yes, considering.
Sina played bishop f6 instantly. I get that his big plan in this match is to stay way ahead on the clock, but to just double his pawns so willingly, such an important decision. But now I think we've seen for the third game in a row, Sina is up big on the clock. That must be part of his strategy. And interestingly, Yuj did not take the bishop. He just played the move queen to d2. I'm surprised by both players' decisions, but I guess those double pawns weren't as bad as they look because the d6 pawn is very hard to touch.
Yeah, I guess so, but still, it would have been very tempting. You know, it's difficult. You know, you just have to make some very quick decisions, and this is a really nice touch there from Sina finding e5. Just remember that en passant is only a one-time offer, and that now it wasn't possible after the queen trade. And here, yes, white does have a passed pawn on c6, but it is vulnerable. It's going to fall off.
I wish we had a name for that tactic because, me and you have seen that a lot, where it's like a positional trick where you don't have time for en passant because there was a discovered attack. So, Chad, if you want to come up with a name for that tactic that we just saw, a positional tactic, let us know. But right now, it does look like c6 is more weak than helpful. A little sub note, I have a backup pen. I failed at my mission. I'm using my backup pen. Okay, but white needs a backup plan here because that strong pawn is not going to be the winning idea. Knight to d4, taking advantage of this pawn being pinned. Knight e2 is the big problem. And so white needs to deal with that. And I think that black might just try to double up rooks or just play the move knight to b5. But the knight is proving itself every bit as worthy as the light squared bishop.
An interesting choice there from white there, going bishop to f1. I was expecting king to f1, and maybe the rook would clear the way so that the a pawn can advance. But Yaz is just simply saying, hey, I will do that first by consolidating my position, and now I'm expecting rook b4, take some of the lines, rook e1, okay, just forcing black to compromise the structure. But rook a3, interesting, maybe with ideas of going c4 at the right time.
I agree. I find these positions incredibly hard to digest. For those of you who are fans of the Grunfeld, it's almost like a Grunfeld pawn structure in reverse, where one side dominates the center, but the other side has these queen pawns. Unfortunately, unlike the Grunfeld in reverse, white would have a B and an A pawn. The pawns are separated, which might make a huge difference. And the black pieces are nicely centralized. I notice that the white pawns are struggling getting going. So I think black might be a little bit easier to play, but the clock, again, is the important factor. I think for the third game in a row, Sina is ahead by more than a minute. This is actually his biggest time delta that he's had the entire match. He's up 1 minute and 20 seconds. Yagiz has only 19 seconds with which to play this endgame. The most important factor of the match has been the time.
Yeah, and unfortunately for white, it's also very easy for black to play. You just step in with the king is going to defend d5, and then you can just simply go rook to a8 and start targeting both weaknesses, the pawns on c3 and a4.
Well said. Now, Yagiz has proven himself up to the challenge. He plays bishop c4. I almost wonder if you can take, but probably that's not quite playable. Bishop goes back to a2, pressuring this pawn. Now, if you move the knight, we might see c4, although maybe not, because after d4, the pawns get moving and grooving, as my tennis coach says. So almost a bit of stasis here. Nobody can push the pawns the way they want to. Black has not done an effective job attacking the pawns, and the rook can't do it because he's tied down to defense. So operations are now being undertaken on the king side. Black is well advised to continue to create complications with that massive time advantage. Yagiz plays rook b1 instantly, knowing he's going to get low on time if he doesn't get going.
Yeah, and rook b1 is a very crafty move. Next idea is to go rook to b5, and suddenly reminding black that there is a passed a pawn on the board. So it's very nice. And as you mentioned, somehow the knight isn't on a good circuit there on a5. It should be defending the weakness on d5. And instead, it's up to the black king side to actually do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I'd play f3 to force the white king to a really bad square and also induce the possibility of some back rank mates. In fact, knight c4 is now playable because after bishop takes, pawn takes, there's a back rank mate. You don't even have time to capture the c pawn. And when you stop the back rank mate, the rook's going to come down to d3. I'm actually kind of surprised that that did not happen in the game. Anyway, now the pawn gets moving, and this knight is going on a little walkabout. I'm not sure if he's really improving his lot in life. It does free the rook, though, because the d-pawn was overprotected, but c4. And it looks like white has gotten the best of the last couple moves, and the clocks are getting very close to even, as Sina has now dipped down to around 10 seconds. Yagiz is still hanging out in that 2 or 3 seconds. He's lived to tell the tale so far, but things are getting crazy.
Things are getting crazy, but the c-pawn has fallen, and that's a mighty pawn, and here it comes. Now the knight needs to get involved. Oh, no, he doesn't. Just simply needs to create another pawn, the f-pawn, and f2 is there. Rook to f4 is the only move, and now the king is in, and nothing is stopping that pawn from promoting. And yes, there you see rook to a8, and woo, a sigh of relief and a fist pump there from Sina as he strikes back to level the match.
Absolutely. A really needed win there. And we should say that black has gone back in control in this match. Black has won the 2 decisive games, and black was winning the 1 game that petered out into a repetition. So some issues to be solved. That was the theme yesterday in the opening pool play that both of these players came out of. Black scored 66% in yesterday's opening pool, and now Black has won 2.5 out of 3 and really could have gone 3-0, but we're back to all square. I have to say, though, Yovi, Yuj has 2 blacks from the remaining 3 games. I guess that's an advantage. Best of 6, tied 1.5 to 1.5.
I think before this whole event started, you would never have heard those words from us. But as I say, Black is absolutely more than okay, especially here at the ChessKid Youth Championships. So here, okay, well, Black does have the bishop pair, but White is taking control of the center. So I'm expecting Black to go in the direction of going d6, just holding firm. But if Black is going to be striking out with, say, for instance, pawn takes d4 and then d5, the time is now.
Yeah, exactly. And I know I'm going to have to eat my words. Luckily, I didn't have to eat that pawn a minute ago. But we did say when your king is stuck in the middle, you don't want to open the center. That's exactly what White has done. Now that the center starts to open, I think White needs to get the king out of the middle. And in fact, he does. I don't think there was quite time for Black to play d5. And so that's why White could get away with it for just that one move. But once again, is the bishop a strength or a weakness? That dark squared bishop, I believe 2 games ago, ended up getting in the game. Yuj won a very long battle of knight versus bishop, but once again, we see this bishop not being so great. Although, unlike in game 2, the bishop can immediately reroute himself to a better diagonal, whereas it took Yuj the better part of 40 moves to get that bishop in the game. But once he did, he took control and he won game 2.
Yeah, and also the big question for Black is this bishop on c8. It really wants to be on e6, exchanging itself for that mighty bishop on c4. So that's why we're seeing queen e7. But if you do that, then you get rid of the advantage of the bishop pair. And also, I gotta say, I like the way that Sina is playing this, because g3, again, just controls those knight jumps to f4 and h4.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things about this match is that there is no break in the 6 games. I'll bet you if we had instituted a break, Shak Mehmediyarov would have given a call to Yuj and said, play faster, because look at the clock. It is now a 1-10-second advantage already in the opening. We're at move 16, and Yuj has used almost 2/3 of his time. Now, he's a far better player than I could ever dream to be, and he's almost lived to tell the tale in all 3 games. But he was in big trouble in game 1. And in the last game that we just saw, he just, the clock was definitely a factor in him not being able to hold that endgame. It was a crazy pawn imbalance endgame. He's got to play faster.
And I was going to say, what is stopping White from grabbing that pawn on e5? And the answer was there was nothing. And what is going to be the response? Rook to e8. So I guess the idea is just simply to step back or step forward with the bishop and then target e4.
Yeah, he's just playing the long-term game of, hey, you want my pawn? Okay, I'm going to win it back. Might take me 5 moves, but my bishop is going to gain some life. So almost an intuitive pawn sacrifice, if I had to guess.
Okay, well, really mature, actually. But now the pawn on e4 is under threat. But one thing we've seen with Sina, he's so good in situations where he's material up and he has to go on the defensive to neutralize his opponent's initiative. I like this move e5 a lot because it's inviting those simplifications. And now decision time, do you take that bishop? Okay, at a5, threatening to go the whole way with a6 just to destabilize the queen side. And there's a pin on the board. That's why Adamush vacates the e-line very quickly. And once again, we have that situation with opposite color bishops where the bishops need to be effective in looking at a target. This bishop on f3 needs to be somewhere, say, on c4, looking at f7. And the bishop on d6 also needs to be doing the same.
We'll see if he can reroute the bishop. Honestly, I'm surprised he never played knight takes e5 and played bishop versus knight. That would be the inverse of their last time with these colors. Because in the long run, I do believe the bishop is going to annoy these pawns in the endgame. In fact, one of the things that grandmasters do so well is they try to envision what endgames they're going for. If you could imagine a position, Yovi, with just bishop versus knight and the remaining pawns on the board, White would have the advantage because the knight would have to babysit these pawns the rest of the game. But that didn't happen. We have opposite colored bishops. The first player that gets their bishop to an active square is probably going to be better. And by the way, if the bishop does maneuver around to c4, queen takes g6 is in the air. That was my mortal weakness growing up. We will see if that bishop finds itself on a more active square in a couple moves. Queen d7 might be coming.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say, this bishop maneuvering itself to f6 is very clever because suddenly Black is just reminding white that it is not just one-way traffic, that the pawns on c3, b4, and a5, they are on dark squares and therefore perfect munching ground. And look at this retreat. Next idea is to go rook to e8. And we might just see a simple clarification, though, on the queen side, as I suspect absolutely everything will come off. Okay, this is an invitation to take it to an opposite color. Bishop endgame. It's a difficult one because actually the pawns on the queen side for white are potentially very, very weak.
Yeah, if the rooks had traded, I think we would have turned into a checkers game where we would have had double jumps on all the pawns. I think the black bishop would have captured all the white pawns and the white bishop would have captured all the black pawns. But luckily, we're still playing chess. White gets one of those pawns at least off of the dark squares, and black follows suit by getting one of his pawns off of the light squares. So they're trying to put their pawns on much safer squares. And the white rook, though, is slightly more active. The bishops are both equal. Well, maybe the white bishop's got a little bit more of a target, but the white rook I like a little bit more. Pawn to b5, and now white's going to get an outside pass pawn. By the way, white's promotion square is a light square, exactly where his bishop is, so white has slightly better chances, but objectively it should still be a draw.
Yeah, but it's getting really sharp here because we're off to the races. Look at the c-pawn go, 2 squares away from queening. How to stop that one? So he's banking on ideas such as rook to c7. And just make sure that it's white to play. Rook to c7, yes, indeed, is the move. Only move that I could see to defend this one. And now you have to go bishop takes b7. And the white rook is perfectly placed behind its enemy pawn. But, I mean, can you do that? But rook to b5, this was something that concerned me. I guess after rook takes b6, you've got, I was thinking bishop to d5, but instead this whole rerouting. Oh, this is really tricky, Mike. Even though the evaluation bar is like level, I don't think this is at all easy.
Yeah, you got 6 seconds left. You got to figure out which piece to take on f7 with, and can you guard the c-pawn? So he gives a discovered check, keeping an eye on the pawn. He's going to have to move the bishop. It looks like he will collect the pawn. And what we're going to see, which we didn't see almost any of yesterday, is one player pushing a drawn position to its max. And that's a great move by black. Getting the rooks off of the board makes this light years easier to hold. Now all black has to do is not move the king or the pawn ever, wait for white to play f4, and just sack for the remaining pawn. In fact, Sina doesn't even try to push the advantage at all. They make a draw. They're tied 2-2 with 2 games left. It's basically a brand new match. It's a best of 2 for the $3,000 and the title of the 2026 ChessKid Youth Champion. Yagiz gets his final turn as white unless we go to tie breaks. If it's a tie break, we'll play 2 more games of 3+1.
Yes, and if it's still tied after the tie break, then we're going to see absolutely everything decided by Armageddon. And that's always really fun, exciting. And take a look at what's happening right now on our screens, because the knight has jumped out to g4, ideas of going knight to e5 and just attacking those pillars of strength on e4 and c4.
By the way, I'm going to go back up one move here. I had this exact position 3 consecutive years in the same tournament against the same player, GM Alex Vaitkevich. He actually wrote a book on the Catalan. I don't know why I played into his pet line, but I know this position very well. I always played rook e8 and then a5 to solidify my knight. And guess what? He always outplayed me. I was lucky to escape with a couple of draws. This knight to g4 move, I do not know. It looks a little bit artificial, a little bit mechanical to get this knight into this square, because I do believe the f-pawn can still move forward one day. But can white guard these pawns? Are they stopping black from gaining space, or are they targets? We're about to find out. But guess what? It's a broken record, Yovi. Sina is up a minute out of the opening on move number 10.
Yeah, and I just checked out the databases. The main move and the one that I knew about was just to go h3, because you don't have to worry about sacrifices on f2, because queen to f6 check is always going to be met with a knight to f3. And this is the big idea that I mentioned, that the knight comes to e5, and now white has to contort themselves in order to defend this pawn on c4. You can't go knight to d2 because the knight is going to jump into d3. So you have to go as white knight takes knight. And yes, white has double black's pawns, but there is a beautiful outpost on d4 for the knight.
Yeah, very good. Well, we've got a moment. Let's take a look at that non-sacrifice that you just showed. We're just going to actually, you know what? Let's skip it because the players have decided they're going to play blitz chess to its fullest, but there was no sack on f2. Okay, so bishop to g5, attacking the rook. And this pawn structure, every King's Indian defense player should be comfortable with, even though you've got doubled pawns. You have a complete clamp down on these dark squares. Your knight is almost in a virtual outpost because if white ever plays f4, that's just going to weaken more dark squares against your king. I could see the knight going back to g4 because then after bishop to d4 check, the bishop and knight are really annoying that white king. So I like this pawn structure for black. It's not just because I'm a King's Indian defense player, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, so knight to d5. It looks like white's main counterplay was to get his knight to a great square.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, is like moves such as a bishop to f1 for white, because you're thinking here how to actually hold firm the c pawn. You want to keep that strength. And bishop to f1 is simply going to allow moves such as knight to f3 check at the right time. So knight to d5 was the only move, and it was found. And question here, how are you going to extricate that rook from potential attack? So c6 being played. And I'm just thinking it doesn't have too many squares. You know, bishop to f1 is on the horizon.
Yeah, you said extricate the rook, but white's got to be careful because the knight jump to c6, you're almost self-trapping your knight just to win a tempo. The knight might want to come to e7 where he's also self-trapped, but at least he can trade for the bishop at his leisure, or Yovi at his leisure. I'm trying to speak the British way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Okay, knight
appreciate
f6 check. King should avoid. Of course, if you take that, you have your hero bishop in the King's Indian. You actually would be not allowed to play the King's Indian ever again if you play bishop takes knight. You have to move the king somewhere, and king h8 guards the h7 pawn. So it should be a pretty natural move for Sina, who's up a minute and a half on the clock.
Yeah, king to h8. I mean, the big question is that maybe he might be tempted by king f8. It's a simple, you just go knight takes h7, and then the knight comes back to f6. So yeah, king h8, but I guess this was the move that was particularly troubling because you mentioned it, the King's Indian bishop is a bit of a beast, and I guess you got to hunt it down. And how to rescue it, I guess you don't. I guess you just simply continue with development.
Yeah, what an amazing idea. The knight reaches the other side of the board and the bishop on g7 can't move because bishop f6 would have happened. But now white is going to face the same thing. This knight's going to jump in, and the knight's going to be so strong you're going to have to take. And for the second straight game, we might very well get opposite colored bishops with rooks on the board. I'm expecting to see it, but for the moment, black plays a little bit more coy and plays f6. After all, you can play knight f6 whenever you feel like. So let's see if black goes for it, or if black prefers to keep this strong knight in the center of the board. So I would play knight f3 check. I like my light squared bishop more than I love white's dark squared bishop, but let's see how it's played. You could always double rooks and play it later, perhaps.
But I think Sina is also playing with one eye on the clock because Yaz is now under 10 seconds and he's just simply saying, I don't want to allow white to have any natural moves. I want him to think every single opportunity and give him the chance to go wrong. But Yaz is very quick and he's relentless. He understands exactly what the mission is, and that is to exchange as many pieces as possible so that the extra pawn that black has doesn't count.
I love what you said. Very pragmatic decision. King f2, give the pawn, but gain the d1 square. He was able to trade one set of rooks, realizing that 4 against 3 probably is not winning, and an opposite colored bishops almost certainly is not winning. There's still work to be done, but when your clock reads as low as it did, you can play this so much faster than if that bishop is able to stay on target with d1 and black was able to keep control of the d file. So very practical play here by Yagiz, and he's got 1.7 seconds, but that's a lot better than it was a couple of moves ago when there was more dynamism on the board.
Yeah, and note that Yaz didn't play king to e3. Okay, he's just understanding, oh, this is very nice. You couldn't take the bishop because the rook was hanging. And now we just have a straight up opposite color bishop. And note one thing, that black cannot take that pawn on a2, because if you do that, king to c2, and the bishop will be sidelined and lost. Doesn't have any squares.
Yep, very nice spot. And they say that the average grandmaster can know about 30,000 patterns. That is definitely one of them that we both know very well. Yovi knows 29,997 when she learned three more when given the grandmaster title. But notice that was spotted right away, and a very important one, a very good reason to do your tactics. But 2 seconds left for Yosh. He's not doing tactics. He's just toggling. And wow, after seeing 0 draws in opening pool play yesterday, we have 3 draws in 5 games. That just goes to show you how close these two players are. We have game 6 for the championship. They both are within about 10 points in Chess.com Blitz rating, and they are now separated by 0 points in the finals. Game 6 will decide everything, and Yuj will have black, which we know might actually be an advantage. Here we go. We have a closed Lopez now. You know what, Yobi? This is the natural sequel to yesterday, because remember, right as the action was getting big in round 8, this was the game where Sina disconnected in the middle game, and we never got to see the continuation. And guess what they're giving us right now? They're giving us the continuation of their round robin game yesterday.
Yes. And coming out with the queen on e2, I believe it's called the whirl attack. So many plans here. You can go basically castles, go d3. You can even really play it aggressively with h3, g4. That was something I think was seen in the 80s and the 70s. That's kind of old knowledge. But he's going for a kind of more slower plan, c3. You want to be castling d3, and you want to go very slowly, rook d1 with d4 at the right time. So I like this kind of small center. I mean, this is the beauty about the Lopez, the Italian game, is there's so many move orders. But one thing for sure, in black going d6 is actually ruled out the ideas of striking out in the center with the d5.
Yeah, and I'm going to say Sina's come into this match. I'm not going to say better prepared, but I will say with more surprises. Remember, his knight g4 move in the previous game won a minute on the clock. His whirl attack, queen e2, won him nearly a minute on the clock. He now finds himself up almost exactly a minute. So this has been great match strategy to always have that one little wrinkle that Yuj has had to delay his next decision on. And so while our game might be equal, remember that eval bar on the left is not taking into account the clock times. And that is probably the most important thing right now, is once again, that large advantage for Sina. But here we are, game 6, everything will come down to this game.
Yeah, and take a look at this. Knight to g6 did basically provoke white into making a weakening move. Okay, so bishop to b7 wasn't what I expected, because I kind of like the fact that the weakness on h3 prevented white from ever castling kingside. Here, it's still really tense, Mike. You know, white is going to go knight to e3, jump in with the knight to f5, both kings in the middle of the board. He's doing it in a much more sophisticated way. I don't think black should be taking on e3 at all. That would be very accommodating. Instead, c5, maybe getting ready to strike out with d5. And remember, black also has that free hand to get the king to safety with a castle's kingside. And that's going to be something that's very crucial.
Instructional moment alert. Yovi already teased it. 2 white pieces wanted to use the e3 square, the bishop and the knight. And if you had taken, you would have just helped white by trading one of them. So by keeping the bishops on the board, we keep the knight at bay. The knight often comes to g3 in the closed Lopez. However, white already had to play g3 to stop this knight. So this knight is the problem child for the white position. That's why c5 was such a cool idea. Computer says that black is a little bit better, but honestly, it is a coin flip. And guess what? The clocks are back to equal. Their Chess.com Blitz ratings are equal. The position is equal. The match score is equal. The next 5 minutes will decide who lives on in ChessKid lore forever.
Yeah, definitely. Talking about ChessKid lore, Yaz has already been there. This is like his personal event. He won both the under 13 and the 16 back in 2024. Last year, he kind of came close, losing in the final to Andy Woodward. He's now back in the finals again. He's castling queenside for white, and this one really feels like it's really heating up, because everything to play for. I mean, what is black's plan? I mean, how to get at the white king? It's not going to be easy. I was thinking knight f5, jump in with a knight to d4.
Well, another question is that a straight up pawn sack? Because knight takes, I'll say this, there was not an immediate refutation. The knight could have just captured But white is saying, you know what? I got a hook pawn over here. That means a target pawn. He puts his rook behind the G pawn, which is not masking his intentions in any way. He's going to play G4, G5, uncompromising chess. The kings are cast on opposite sides. He gets the pawn to G5. It looks like white is breaking through a little bit early, but the computer says, you didn't say the magic word. Knight F4, the knight jumps to an awesome square, unsupported by a pawn, but it doesn't matter because that knight is so strong, attacking the queen and the H pawn.
Yeah, and that's actually a really difficult move to spot because yes, you can see that knight jumps to the f4, but what is the response after the queen zooms up to e5 and attacks it? Is the answer simply going to be bishop to c7, or is that knight doing something a bit more fancy, such as knight takes h3? And then you're in for a whole load of fireworks, especially if there's going to be pawn takes h6 for white at any moment.
Yeah, if you play queen up, I love your move bishop c7, because if the queen goes to f5, she might get trapped after g6. And if you ever take the c pawn, black would have tricked white into opening up the file against the king. So instead, the queen takes up an incredibly passive square. Now, white does open up the g file, but without your queen in the attack, it might just be a Pyrrhic victory. Pawn up to h5, solidifying the knight. And whoa, black somehow is taking the advantage by trading. Okay, but hard to believe black is that much better without being able to open up the white king. At some point, this g file looks like it could be the downfall, especially because your knight must not move. Otherwise, knight e6 would be a killer. Black centralizes the queen. The game is still equal. Less than a minute for both players. Here we go.
Yeah, and less than half a minute for Yaz, but we've seen he's been here before. And also for Sina, very quick, very relaxed under these time controls. And just having a look, like what to do with the white knight is not apparently obvious. You know, we're seeing the blue arrow on the board, knight to h3, which literally invites, finds it, but it does invite knight takes knight, and then black will capture the pawn on c2.
And take a look at the cameras. Yagiz is getting fully into this back-end black mode. He has got the only light in his room, appears to be his computer monitor. His room is totally black. He is totally zoned in. He's playing black, and after knight h3, he has to decide this star knight, what's he going to do? The computer suggests that trading and picking off the f-pawn is the way to go. And then his rooks would start to annoy the white king, both on the first rank and possibly from the side. So the black rooks finally are making some sense. The queen moves over to f5, and white says, I'm going to make some sense too. I'm going to ask you to stop making sense. Oh, talking heads reference. Okay, queen up to g6. And now the queen gives check. Are we going to see a repetition? Are we going to have bonus chess? Uh-oh, we got checkmate threats that black just had to deal with. Now black wants to get the queens off the board because he usually has 2 seconds left. He wants to simplify and not lose on time. More checks. And black is better, but white is the one making all of the aggressive tempo moves. It is a 3-result game, and seconds will decide who wins.
Oh, no!
This 7 is a goner, and it is a checkmate. To decide the ChessKid Youth Championship, Sina throws his arms in the air, and Yagiz can only look backward in his room and wonder what went wrong. Yovi, I think that the extra 10 seconds on the clock really allowed Sina to navigate, and congratulations to him for winning the 2026 ChessKid Youth Championship.
Yeah, congratulations to Sina Movahed there, the new ChessKid Under-16 Youth Champion. We also got to say congratulations to Yaz for putting on quite the show. I mean, they were there toe-to-toe until those closing seconds. Oh, the frustration is very real for Yaz there. Just knowing that at the end it was the clock that was the downfall, but Sina, hats off to him. He managed to hold his nerve. He was very pragmatic. He knew exactly, Mike, how to pose the problems, especially when the clock started ticking down to that closing seconds.
Absolutely. We could not have asked for a more exciting final. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Sina had the opening surprises, which did not necessarily get him a better game, but got him that advantage on the clock. And we can see, if you can remember the final position, I know all you in chat can remember, but the white king never really got bothered, and white was the first to open. And if there's one lesson you can take away from this, besides playing a little bit faster in blitz, it's that the first player to open up a file when kings are castled on opposite sides is usually the player that is going to have the best chances to win. So I was very, very impressed with Sina's play. This is the 3rd year we've had the Under-16 Championship, and it's the 3rd year we've had a new winner. Yagiz in 2024, Andy Woodward 2025, and Grandmaster Sina Movahed of Iran in 2026. That was the closest final, I believe, we've ever had, just barely avoiding tie breaks, 3.5 to 2.5. And we already probably knew the name Yagiz. We probably already knew Andy. You probably already owned Tani's book, but now you know the name of Sina move ahead, who was a move ahead, creating checkmate in the final game.
Yes, he was a move ahead, and he's got a reputation as a giant killer. He's been billed as the new Ali Reza Firouzja, and you could see on the screens how much that victory meant to him. Well, what a worthy champion. Sina move ahead, starting off with a loss against Tani, but he struck back, winning the semifinals there and also winning the final against Yaz Adamush. We are going to go on a short break as we get ready for an interview with Sina. But before we do, I'd just like to tell you about Judith Polgar versus the world, because you can face Judith Polgar, the strongest woman in chess and one of the most influential players the game has ever seen, in her match against the world. We're now deep in the middle game, and Polgar, she's on the attack. Can you help the world defend? I think every single mind here will matter and count. Join the battle with tens of thousands of players against one of chess's all-time greats and use command !play Judith in the chat. And if you want to learn more about the legend herself, do check out her brand new documentary, Queens of Chess, which is now streaming and is actually one of the top 10 on Netflix. We're going to go on a short break as we get ready for an interview with our ChessKid youth champion.
You're the checkmate followed knight to this way. Opening trap actually used quite a few times, and I managed to win a few games very quickly by a checkmate within 10 moves. So it's super fast. It goes like d4, knight f6, c4. I used to play e5. This is called the Budapest Gambit. Usually white takes on e5. Yeah, now we attack the pawn by playing knight to g4. It's a trap! White protects, knight to f3. We attack again, knight to c6. White is trying to protect again, bishop f4. I go bishop b4, check. Now, knight d2. I played queen to e7, attacking the pawn on e5 again. And here, many players played a3, which is still a good move, attacking the bishop. And I took on e5. And some careless people did take the bishop on b4. One may wonder what can be wrong with that, but here the checkmate followed knight to this way.
Are you tired of losing against strangers in chess? Donating ELO rating points to somebody you don't even know? Feels a lot better losing to a friend who could actually use those rating points and then thank you later. Sync your contacts and get started playing against people you already know in real life on Chess.com today.
All right, we're here with the world's youngest ever WIM, Bodhana Sivanandan. I'm on her territory here live in London, and you're playing the ChessKid Youth Championship, and I'm going to be your warm-up act. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, 5 minutes, no increment. Good luck. Our first ever game, by the way. I think I'm a little bit more nervous. Okay, the big question is, how much do I talk and how much do I move? You're playing like a 45-year-old grandmaster, and that's a compliment. Okay, slowly taking over the position. So you're keeping the tension.
I don't know what else to do here.
Yeah, this is like who blinks first. Let's go there. All right. You're not letting me have any fun. All right, it's time to start capturing stuff. I got her pawn. So we're in the game now. Now, there is a small danger playing me. You know what that is, right?
No.
This could turn into a ChessKid video at any moment. All right, now, do you think I should play knight f4 and sacrifice a pawn for the dark square?
I wouldn't, but I don't know.
You're supposed to use, like, reverse logic. It's a good move. It's a good move, Fun Master. So even if I don't win, if I get her down to 2 minutes, that's a moral victory.
2 minutes.
Hey, I gotta take the wins where I can get them. Yeah, your knight doesn't have a lot of natural homes, unfortunately for you.
I'll find one.
It's probably equal. properly.
Okay, so now I'm considering f4, but I don't like it.
Old truth bomb, didn't see f4. Kind of glad that it's not losing by me.
Don't like how I got myself into this.
I don't know, I might rather have your position with the extra 45 seconds. Almost got her down to 2 minutes. Moral victory coming up. Trying to get a little revenge. She beat my boss yesterday, so...
Totally random.
I feel like trading everything, going to a king and pawn in game, but then if I lose the king and pawn in game, like half my videos on YouTube are going to be thrown in the garbage because all I talk about is endgames. If I go here, do I lose? Okay. I found another non-losing move.
That's your aim?
I might have to do something that I never do, which is stop talking. Never before seen on camera.
Would you go into the king and pawn in game now, though?
I think I have to if you play that certain move. Oh, 30 seconds and I'm an old man.
It isn't as good as I expected it to be, I have to admit. I don't think I'm winning.
10 seconds. Okay. Woo! I had 8 seconds left and my brain went blank, but I don't think I'm winning.
I don't think I'm...
I hope I've served as a good warm-up act for the ChessKid Youth Championship, and thanks for the game.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome back, and joining myself and my client, it is our new ChessKid Youth Champion Under 16, Sina Moverhead. Now, Sina, we saw you celebrating on our cameras, but how do you feel right now as the new champ?
It's just amazing. My opponent is an amazing talented, and he's also he's born in 2011, so he's younger than me, and yeah, to my eyes, he's just a demon who plays very sharp, and he calculates very fast. And also, he sometimes finds unbelievable moves. Like in the second game, he found Bishop G1, which is something that if you give me about 10 minutes, then probably I will find it. But under 10 seconds to play Bishop G1 is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, that was a fantastic move. And let me start by saying congratulations. You can test me on my Iranian pronunciation, Tabrik Migam. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's great pronunciation, actually. Great.
Okay, well, thank you. That's the only thing that I'm good at. I wanted to ask you about your speed in the finals, because you used a couple of opening surprises that caused him to use 1 minute on the clock in the opening. How important was that speed in this match?
Yeah, I just tried to play something that I'm familiar with, and I knew Lopez better, so I kept it for the last game, although I got a very bad position soon. But Italian worked very well for me as well. So yeah, it's quite important to have that flexibility to change in Italian and Lopez. So yeah, that's amazing from me. Yeah.
Yeah. And just a question, because you mentioned that you had a bad position out of the opening in one of your games, but what was the hardest moment for you today in this match?
Of course, it was when both of us were under 10 seconds, and it was the final game. So whoever loses that will be out and will lose the match. Also, the moments that I lost the pawns on f2 and d3, and also he was keeping his king safe. That was a very tough situation for me. I couldn't even feel my heart. I mean, that's just very tough.
Speaking of not being able to feel your heart, yesterday when you were just about to qualify, you had a disconnection. And then you were able to reconnect. And I thought I saw some nervousness on your face when you were able to reconnect in round 9. What was that like for you yesterday, trying to get back online?
Yeah, of course, I didn't expect it to be that tough, and I had to fight on the final game. I thought that my qualification would be forced, and I would not have any problems. But suddenly, I was lost in the rook game in the final game, so that was very heartbreaking for me. That there was a chance that I could not qualify. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you feel in those moments? I mean, because it did look like you were going to tie breaks tomorrow, and then today you started off with a loss against Tani, but then we saw you strike back. I mean, how did you manage to do all this?
Yeah, first of all, yesterday was a fine day because before the disconnection, I was very happy with my play, and um, I defeated many strong players before that. So yeah, I was in form. And also, the first game of today was very bad by me. I just misplayed the middle game. I knew the plans, but I forgot the order. So I got punished with h5, rook h1. And yeah, I lost very quickly. But after that, I chose the great openings and it worked. So also in the second game, I had a preparation and I waited for him to play faster so that he can feel that I'm not prepared for that. But yeah, that was a little trick. So yeah, that trick helped me to get the momentum. Yeah.
Sina, you played so great and you're so well spoken. I want to ask a question from the chat. I'm going to modify it a little bit, but our chat user, Sative Swing, says, how and why did you start playing chess? But what I kind of also want to know is, in the finals, there was two countries who have a lot of great young chess players, a lot of young Iranian grandmasters, a lot of young Turkish grandmasters. So did you get started in the schools? Is there a chess in schools program in Iran? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Also, I'm not living in Tehran, so I'm living in other city, which is very far from the capital. And there are not great players, but yeah, they're fine, but not very top. And so for me, it was just playing online on Chess.com, and yeah, how I introduced the chess was clearly by luck. I was very fortunate. So yeah, yeah, that's it.
I love this story. By luck, you just came upon the game. But earlier on, you mentioned openings and how you were very well prepared. So I'd like to also ask a question from chat. This is from Krishna21234. It says, what is your favorite opening to confuse opponents?
I would say there are some variations in Lopez with white, but also some very dubious openings in Kings in the end, where my opponent has a huge plus, and I'm really happy with my play. That's something that helps me a lot to win Blitz games and improve my rating on Chess.com.
Well, fantastic play. You're the worthy champion. You'll forever be in the history books. Of course, you get the $3,000 prize. Let me ask you a final question, Sina. Now that you have won a world championship, do you have a nickname in chess that you would like the world to call you by? Pranav is Buddy. I don't know how that came about, but it is. What about you? What do you want your nickname to be in the chess world?
Yeah, I have already won. Seen a move ahead, which
like that
is very funny. That in my language, Persian, of course, it does not mean anything similar to that. But yeah, it's very funny that they call me that. So I like that, and it will be forever.
Yeah. Great. We can lean into that. We were mostly just talking about your surname, but I love how you've combined your first name and your last name. You have seen a move ahead. And in fact, we're going to go with that. If you like it, we like it. And it is kind of perfect for a chess player. Second only to Irina Krush, or maybe at least as good as Irina Krush's name. So thank you so much. You have seen a move ahead. And Sina, you are the champion for 2026. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's a great event.
Well, our congratulations to Sina move ahead, the new ChessKid under 16 youth champion. What a day it has been. It started off in the semifinals with Yaz and Sina defeating their respective opponents, and then it all came down to the closing seconds in game 6 of the final, where Sina move ahead. In fact, did see a move ahead, and he pipped Yaz Adamus there to the post, winning that final game with a checkmate. Mike, it has been an incredible 2 days of action, and what a final it was.
Yeah, I don't know how to say clutch in Persian, but remember, he was clutch to qualify near the end of the round robin. He won the final game against Tani to qualify for the finals. And then, of course, he won that unbelievably up and down finals game in the last moments to beat Yagiz. And he's very well spoken and very modest. And I hope to see a lot more of him. I honestly did not know much about him until this weekend, but I'm really happy to have him as our champion. So he has seen a move ahead, and we're going to probably not use that too many more times because we've already used it so many times in the last 5 minutes. But he really has outcalculated his opponent, and he's just so fast. And it was a nice celebration, Yovi, of how good you can be at such a young age. These are all very worthy ambassadors of our game, and I hope they'll go on to become professional players and achieve the most they can in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been wowed by the array of talent that we saw. Starting off yesterday with the round robins, we saw names, Henry Edward Tudor, Patrick Shislak. I mean, we also Rio Chen, Aaron Mendes. I mean, so many stars of the future that we got to see in action. It has been a real privilege seeing them. And here, in the end, on this day, it was fantastic as well with Tani Adewumi as well, the only international master on the field, and the way that he made 7.5 points yesterday in the round robin. I mean, I could name absolutely everyone. Everyone has kind of come to the day, with some amazing chess and some insights. And I think the future is very, very rosy and maybe a little bit scary for us oldies, Mike, because they are good. And congratulations again to Sina Movahed. And I just want to also extend my congratulations to Yaz for just keeping us entertained and just showing us that ChessKids is his event as well.
That's right. And your country's looking bright. We had Super Teat and Bodana in the under 13 finals. So congratulations to England on doing well. Iran seizes the day today. And before you close the show, Yovi, I just want to say thank you to all the people who helped make this event and the under 13 event come together. From the technical team, we had Ryan, we had Brian, we had Tadeusz from the game ops team, we had Simon, we had, I think, who was involved in the background? Gregory, maybe. We also had people like Lily Fuentes doing the fair play. We had Michael Brancato hosting everything. We had Sklani getting all of this information together. If you wanted to know why we know that Megan Parago plays guitar, it's because Sklani was reaching out to everybody on that. And I'm sure there's a few people that I've forgotten. Brancato, Greg Shahadi helped with all the player invites. And of course, Yovi and Arturs, you guys were great hosts to make this come to life. And if I've forgotten somebody on my team, I apologize. You know who you are. AK was in the chat modding. AK, we didn't forget about you. All right, Yovi, had to give some props and some love to my ChessKid team.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have worked tirelessly behind the scene and absolutely made this experience incredible. But there's one person you did forget, Mike, and that's yourself. And I'd like to give a huge shout out for being awesome. It's been a fantastic experience doing the commentary with you. And I know that you've put in a tremendous amount of hard work and a lot of love into this particular event. So a big thank you to absolutely everyone. And last but not least, I'd like to thank everyone at home for watching and just cheering on the future superstars of our chess scene. It's been absolutely incredible. 2 days of fantastic chess. And until the next, I'd like to say goodbye.